I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 136, Peace in Adversity. Your life does not have to revolve around your husband's pornography addiction. You are not defined by his choices or by what he sees on a screen. You are not just the porn addict's wife. You are so much more. In this podcast, I'm going to teach you how to go from handling it to healed, because I've been where you are and you don't have to stay there. My name is Jolene Wynn. I'm a member of the LDS faith, a certified life coach, and a wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the porn addict's wife. Hello, my ladies. How are you? Merry Christmas. I know that Christmas is not until Sunday, but I'm not going to get to talk to you until after Christmas. So I want to wish you guys a very Merry Christmas. Today is not Christmas. Today is December 19th, and it's actually my anniversary. You guys, can you believe it? I've been married for 14 years, and I got married when I was 20, and it has been an incredible 14 years, full of lots of ups and downs, most of which you guys know about. So, that is something that I'm thinking a little bit about today, and I want to spend today and the rest of this week with y'all. So if you guys haven't signed up for Coach Week yet, I want to encourage you guys to sign up for Coach Week. That is this week, starts today at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every day this week, Monday through Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, I am going live on Zoom, and it is your chance to come coach with me for free. This is the last time that I'm going to be doing Coach Week for free, so come take advantage. It is my Merry Christmas gift to y'all. And what this means is that you can come see how to start applying everything that you're learning on the podcast. So if you guys have never seen coaching, if you're curious about it, if you want to know what it's like, but you haven't had a chance yet, if you have a question or are struggling with applying something that you're trying to apply, or you feel like you're stuck, I want to encourage you guys to come to these calls, okay? So all you have to do is go to my website, jolenewynn.com. You will see a tab called Coach Week, and you can see all the information there. You can register for free, and this will enable you to get the Zoom link so that you can join every day that you can. And I want to encourage y'all to come live, because even if you don't have a question specifically, you can come and you can just watch, and you can listen to other people get coached and see what coaching is like, because it is one thing to just intellectually understand and learn everything that is going on the podcast, all of the concepts that I'm teaching you, but learning how to apply them is very different. It's kind of like when you go through driver's ed and you sit in class. Maybe they don't do driver's ed anymore. Do they do driver's ed still? I did driver's ed back in the dark ages. So I would go to class and they would sit and they would teach you intellectually, conceptually about how to drive. That's what the podcast is like, but it's very different from actually getting behind the wheel of a car and driving it yourself. It's the same thing here. There are so many things that I can teach you, and you can start applying them and you can start understanding them, and they're great. But really getting to understand coaching is when you get in the car and drive yourself, when you start to really see how it can change you. That's what it really takes. That's what really makes you start progressing in leaps and bounds. I'm just so excited to spend the week with y'all. And so I want to encourage you again to come join me, jolenewynn.com. You can go to the Coach Week tab and sign up. And even if it's not Monday, you can sign up on Tuesday or Wednesday. You will have access to the replays for a whole week. You will have access to the replays before it closes. So go ahead, and if you can't make them live, sign up so you can watch the replays. And I can't wait to see you there. Okay, ladies, today I want to talk to you guys about peace. And this was coming up because, you guys, it's Christmas time. And as you guys know, Rob and I have been going through a lot over the last month, emotionally, over a month now. And I have been listening to all these Christmas songs about joy and about peace. And I was listening to Christmas songs the other day, and, there's all these songs that say peace on earth, goodwill to men. And I was in kind of a grumpy mood, and I was like, that's wrong. I am not feeling peaceful, and I am not feeling a lot of goodwill toward a certain man in my life. And I started thinking about peace and what it actually is. And I really wanted to share this with y'all today. Okay. And you guys will just have to excuse my voice. I'm starting to lose my voice. And so just bear with me. Okay. So at first, my first question was, what is peace? Okay, peace is an emotion that you feel. And if you look it up, it says that it is freedom from disturbance. And I thought that this was so great because this is what actually I was thinking of before I looked it up. I was thinking about peace, and I was thinking that peace is really the absence of turmoil. That's what I came up with as a definition. You don't actually know if you are feeling peaceful unless you have a comparison to contrast it with, right? You don't have peace without experiencing the opposite of it. Right? Disturbance or adversity or turmoil or discomfort. If you don't have any of those, then the absence of those doesn't mean anything to you. You would think that that's just normal. You wouldn't appreciate it. Part of the appreciation of peace is that it's a relief from something negative, right? We think that peace is the absence of adversity, and it is. Okay, but you don't have to wait until adversity passes in order to feel peace. Okay, let me go through a little bit of what this means because, again, I think often we think that we can't feel peace until our adversity or our turmoil ends. And typically we think of that as the circumstance, right? Until whatever circumstance we have that is negative, that is creating a lot of adversity in our lives, until that passes or resolves, then we won't feel peace. I think that's what we think often enough. Or maybe it's even just the recognition that we won't feel peace until we have internal resolution from our negative emotions, right? We think that as long as we are emotionally disturbed, then we won't feel peace. But today I want to talk to you guys about the possibility of feeling peace, not just from adversity, which is what we typically think of it as, but actually feeling peace in adversity. Okay? So I'm going to go through a couple of things today that can help you feel peace in adversity. And these are concepts and tools that I have been applying over the last month and have helped me immensely. Okay? So the first thing that I want to talk about is how to have peace in adversity. The biggest thing that will help you to have peace in adversity is knowing that it will be there, knowing that adversity will be there, and that it's supposed to, right? Our resistance to adversity, to the negative, is often what makes it worse. Okay? Remember, I've talked about this so many times, and yet it shows up over and over again. The more we resist the idea that life is 50-50, the more we resist the idea that this is exactly what's supposed to happen, the more negativity we actually end up creating. But what if nothing has gone wrong? Our brain hates this question. My brain hates this question. I actually love this question intellectually, but sometimes emotionally, when I'm going through something really difficult, especially when it's a circumstance that's outside of my control, and I try to think, okay, well, what if nothing has gone wrong? My brain says, excuse me? What, you think this is okay? You think this is right? And it doesn't mean any of that. But what it means is you accept that there are going to be negative things in your life. There's going to be adversity. In fact, there's supposed to be. We're supposed to have both. We're supposed to have the opposites, because without the opposites, we wouldn't even understand peace. We wouldn't even understand joy or happiness. We wouldn't understand what it's like to feel calm, because we would have no opposite to it. Life is supposed to have opposites. We're supposed to have the 50-50. And yet sometimes I think we get it in our minds that we're not supposed to. It's not supposed to be this way. I didn't sign up for this. I don't deserve this. This isn't fair. Those are the kinds of thoughts that we have that are just little resistances to the adversity in our lives. But what if the adversity that you're facing is exactly what you're supposed to be facing? Not because you deserve it, but because that's what life is. That's how life is. What if the emotion that you're feeling is exactly what you're supposed to be feeling? I'll give you guys an example of this. So over the last month or so, I have had a lot of negative emotion, and sometimes Rob, in all of his loving goodness and trying to help me feel better, will say, okay, but does it serve you to think this way because it's producing this emotion? And sometimes I turn it around and I say, do you want me to feel happy about this instead? And he's like, well, no. Sometimes there are things that are going to happen that I actually don't want to feel happy about. And that's okay. But sometimes our resistance to that emotion is, I don't think I should be feeling this. I don't want to feel this way. And yet, if you actually take a look at it and think, okay, would you rather be happy that your husband is addicted to porn? Right? This is the example I always give. You don't have to just because you can change your thoughts to something positive doesn't mean that you should. Right? Just because you can change your thought to something that would produce a positive emotion doesn't mean that you should or that you have to. I don't want to be okay with my husband watching porn. I've given this example so many times. And I know that that means that if he does, I'm going to feel some negative emotion. That doesn't mean that that negative emotion shouldn't be there. But if I sit there in that negative emotion and I resist it and say, this isn't fair, I shouldn't have to feel this way, that is just a resistance, and it adds so much more negativity to what I'm actually already facing. And what if that emotion is exactly what I want to feel? What if I want to feel upset? What if I want to feel angry? What if I want to feel sad? It's okay. Sometimes we think our brain wants to resist all negativity, all negative emotion. And sometimes this is when we have to be smarter than our brain and say, what if this is exactly what I'm supposed to be feeling? Thoughts like this shouldn't be happening, or this isn't supposed to happen this way, or this isn't fair, those are all just resistance to adversity. And it only makes what we're going through heavier and more negative than it already is, right? Accepting that you will experience adversity, recognizing that there is 50-50, both as circumstances and in emotions, right? Because emotions are also circumstances. Accepting that you're going to experience adversity will create an open space in you that will allow you to embrace it when it comes rather than resist it. And yes, it's still going to suck, okay? You're going to have really hard days where all you want to do is go to sleep. There have been many times over the last month where I have thought, all I want to do is crawl in my bed and go back to sleep and maybe not wake up tomorrow. Not in a dark way, but in like a, I'm so tired and I don't want to deal with this anymore. I just want to go to sleep and ignore it kind of way, right? But allowing it is what allows it to pass through. As I was thinking about resistance, I was thinking that resistance is kind of like a dam, right? So a dam is something that stops something else, right? When you build a dam, it stops something, usually water, right? When you dam a river, it stops the flow of water, and so the water builds up behind it, okay? When you resist your emotion, when you resist adversity, it's like damming your emotions, okay? You put a stop to them, right? You're trying to block them. You're trying to prevent them from coming to the surface. And they build and build and build behind the dam until the pressure is so intense that the dam bursts, okay? And the consequence of it bursting is so much worse than if you had simply allowed it to run its course. Right? If you guys imagine this, have you guys ever seen videos or photos of a dam after it's burst? It floods like crazy because the river then has so much volume and it's all stopped up from however long, and it's built up and built up and built up, and there's so much more volume and mass of water than it can actually hold further down the road, right? However, if you hadn't set up the emotional dam that we're talking about and you had just allowed the emotion to run its course, then it's not as damaging, right? Because you allow it to run its course, it simply passes through. And then if you find the source of that emotion, then you can decide if you want to cap it off or let it run, okay? I hope that analogy helped you guys. It was super helpful for me. Usually I talk about holding a beach ball underwater, which I've given that analogy before, but I felt like this one, for me, at least last night when I was thinking about it, was so powerful because I just saw the force of a dam bursting. And sometimes that's what it's like when we resist adversity, when we resist circumstances, when we resist emotions. That is what happens. We dam up our own emotions. And ladies, that is not a long-term solution. As most of you know and have probably experienced at some point in your life, it bursts, right? Which is why we feel like we get on an emotional roller coaster, right? We feel like we resist and we're doing fine, and then bam, it bursts, and then we do it again. And we just keep following that cycle. But that is not a cycle that produces results in our life that we like. This is what produces results like yelling at your kids and having a lot of bitterness towards your spouse and having a lot of resentment that comes out in snarky comments or in annoyances or in not wanting to be around him, right? So there are consequences to damming up your emotions because you're just resisting and trying to ignore something that is impossible to ignore. Eventually, you're going to have to face it. And what's better than trying to resist it and trying to deal with the aftermath of a dam bursting is actually working on it ahead of time. Is learning how to allow it, learning how to process it, learning how to follow it back to the source, and learning what to do with it there. Because that is what enables you to actually have control over what's going on in your life. It doesn't remove the negativity. Life is going to be 50-50 either way. But once you remove all the resistance and you learn how to process your emotions and you learn how to handle everything that's going on, that's when you're able to move confidently forward because you know that you can handle anything that comes up in your life, right? Okay, the second thing that I want to offer in helping you feel peace in adversity is to separate the math from the drama. This is a phrase that my coach, Brooke Castillo, uses, separating math from the drama. What that means, and the way that I usually talk about it, is watch how you tell your story. Okay, look at the thoughts that you are using to talk to yourself about what's going on. Look at the story that you have created around your emotions and around your circumstance. Back in the dark ages of the podcast, back in the day, there is one of my very first episodes. It's called Your Feelings Are Valid. And I want you guys to go listen to that. I would encourage you to if you haven't in a while or if you haven't yet, because it's a really good one where I'm talking about how we often create a story around how we're feeling in order to justify how we're feeling. If I feel cheated, then I create a story that my husband had an affair, even if it's not true. Maybe we use the term virtual affair is the phrase that the example that I give, right? It's almost like a virtual affair. And I liked that phrase because it sat well with me. It resonated with how I was feeling. The story validated my emotions. Okay. But the problem with this is that he didn't actually have a virtual affair, and using that term makes it bigger than it actually is. You have to learn you don't have to, but I would encourage you to learn how to separate the math from the drama. Okay, the facts from the story that you tell about the facts. I told you guys about this last week. My daughter Georgia, who's doing math with me, and she sat there and she's just bawling. And I can't do this, and this is too hard, and I don't know how to do it. And we sat there and we talked about her brain, and we talked about how when she thinks I can't do it and she gets overwhelmed and upset, then it just gets worse and she spirals, right? And so as I was thinking of separating the math from the drama, the math is the piece of paper in front of her with the problem on it that she actually does know how to do because it's addition. And she knows how to do addition and multiplication. And she knows how to do that too. And yet the drama in her brain is, this is too hard. I don't know how to do this. And when she thinks that, all of that story, that's when she gets so upset and she can't concentrate and everything is confusing and she second guesses every decision that she makes and every answer that she has, and she has a hard time moving forward. Does this sound familiar? When you get lost in the story, when you get wrapped up in the story, it's very hard to see the math, to see the circumstances. And then when you're able to separate the math from the drama, and you're able to set the drama aside, the math is just facts. And you can look at it and you can solve it with such a clear mind because you're not wrapped up in the story behind it. Ladies, I really want to encourage you, when you are in adversity, this is a very humbling experience. Trust me, I've been doing it a lot the last weeks. A very humbling experience is to let go of the story. One of the things that I did this last couple of weeks is recognize where the story was that I was telling. I was telling myself the story of, this is harder than before. I don't know how to do this time. This is too difficult. Hurts worse. And these were all just the story. And it takes humility to be willing to let go of the story, to be willing to say, all of this is just a story. And what if I let go of it? not in a way to invalidate how I'm feeling. I can still feel however I feel, but I don't have to make it worse by telling myself that what I'm going through is worse. Does that make sense? Okay, the last little tip that I want to give you to allow peace in adversity, or to feel peace in adversity, is to allow the peace. And this seems very simple, but you have permission to feel peaceful. Did you know this, ladies? Even if your husband's watching porn, you're allowed to feel peace. I give you permission. We often deny ourselves that peace by thinking that we should think about our husband's pornography addiction more because it's important or it's serious or whatever it is that we're going through, right? Our brain thinks, okay, this is an important thing, this is a serious thing, and we should think about this more often. And if it catches you in a moment where you're not, it's like, oh my gosh, what, you're not taking this seriously? Do you not care about this anymore? Does this mean that you're just gonna let it go, right? Your brain has all of this story that is all a resistance to not feeling negative emotion. Isn't that crazy? Because your brain is actually wired to avoid negative emotion, but it's always also wired to look out for danger. Okay. And so it thinks that if you allow yourself to feel peace, then you are being naive, right? That you aren't allowing yourself to be prepared for what could possibly happen. And it thinks that if you aren't, then you're naive and you're going to get blindsided by adversity later. Right? Your brain thinks that, we always have to be on guard and don't get your hopes up, right? Because there's probably something worse just around the corner, right? I want you to work on, and I encourage you to practice allowing yourself to feel peace. Give yourself permission to feel peace. It is an emotion that you can experience, and it's an emotion that you should experience, ladies. We get really, really good at allowing ourselves to feel negative emotion, even when we resist it. We're pretty good at allowing ourselves to feel negative emotion, and yet we are pretty terrible at allowing ourselves to feel positive emotion. I've done a podcast on that before called Allowing Positive Emotion. You can go back and listen to it. It is just as vital. Ladies, if you only allow yourself to feel negative emotion, if you only allow yourself to feel adversity, then you're going to think that your life has a lot more adversity in it than it actually does, right? If you only allow yourself to truly experience the negativity of the 50-50, then you're going to think that your life has a lot more negativity in it than it does. It's crazy. Our brains are nuts, okay? But I'm going to teaching you slowly but surely how to be in charge of your brain. And when you learn how to be in charge of your brain and when you learn how to manage your emotions, that is when you can feel confident knowing that no matter what happens, you know that you can handle it. So you have nothing to be afraid of. So you don't have to worry about your husband relapsing in the future because you know that you can handle anything that happens as a result. Let's say he does relapse. That's okay because you know that you can handle it. Because the worst thing that can happen, ladies, is that you'll feel a feeling. And if you're really good at feeling your feelings, then that's nothing you have to be afraid of. It doesn't mean you have to enjoy it. It doesn't mean you have to love it. It doesn't mean you have to be excited about it coming. But what it means is that you don't have to live in fear of it. And when you stop living in fear, that's when your whole world opens up. You stop living in fear that there's going to be women in bikinis at the beach. Stop living in fear that when you go out to dinner, there's going to be a cute waitress. Stop living in fear of whatever it is that he's looking at when he looks it up on his phone. Stop living in fear of going to seeing a movie and wondering what on earth is going to come up on the screen. Stop living in fear of him going on a trip without you. Okay, that is when your life opens up and you actually get to start living it. It's when you get off the emotional roller coaster, not because there's any more positive emotion, but because you stop resisting emotion, because you get better at feeling your emotion, because you know that the worst thing that can happen is that you'll feel a feeling and you know exactly what to do with that feeling. If you don't know what to do, come to Coach Week and I will help you. I will teach you how to do it, so that you don't have to be afraid of living your life, so that when adversity comes, you can feel peace in it, even if there's no relief from it. All right, my ladies, Merry Christmas. I love you all so much. I'm so grateful to each one of you. Every single day, I am praying for you ladies daily, and I just love you so much. Thank you for being in my life. Merry Christmas. I'll talk to you later. All right, ladies, if you are loving what you are learning on the podcast, I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take it to the next level and we actually start applying and learning the how of moving forward. This podcast has taught you the what, and the coaching program is where you're going to learn the how. This is where you learn how to actually start moving forward, process all of that pain that you feel, and let it go once and for all. If you are ready to finally move forward and stop living a life that revolves around your husband's pornography addiction, then I want to invite you to come join me today. Just head to my website, joleneWayne.com, and sign up today. I can't wait to see you there.